It's the Sonic Truth Dynasty Focus Fantasy Football Podcast, brought to you by the PlayerProfiler Network of Podcasts. I'm Alan Seslowsky of RotoWire.com, along with Theo, Gremminger, and the Podfather. Was that a little bit smoother, Podfather?
No, can you please stop it? Stop it. Knock it off, man. It's the Sonic Truth Dynasty Podcast. If you word salad this intro every time, and every time I send you a note, a DM, I try something new. I send you a Gmail note. I sent you a note from iMessage, something. I'm like, Alan, it's just the Sonic Truth Dynasty Podcast. Can you just say it? And you're like, yeah, I got it. No problem. No, it's easy. I got this. And I'm like, okay, cool. And then you do it again. You're trolling me. You're a dickhead. Your head looks like a penis, and you're being a dickhead.
Nice shaved penis, by the way.
It was very shaved. It's clean shaved this morning, I think.
Yeah. Saturday night, I got the undercarriage going over here, the taint part of the beard.
It's a smooth look, Alan. Very smooth.
Yeah. Now, guys, this morning, it's important. This is an important Sonic Truth podcast because I started...
Is it important? Is it important enough to get the name right at the beginning?
Just what's in a name, right? But the reason that this is important...
Dynasty focused show from Roto Underworld and Player Profiler, where we talk about Dynasty and focus on Dynasty.
Well, the reason is because I don't want Theo to go off track with redraft, so I just remind him in the intro that it's a Dynasty-focused fantasy football podcast.
It all ties in today, guys, because we're talking about the Breece Hall situation, and we got to talk a little bit of redraft here, Alan, in our thought process, because this year matters. This year absolutely matters for Dynasty, and he's got a Dalvin Cook size situation to deal with.
Yep. Well, the only reason that I think it is important is because, well, actually many reasons, but I'm in charge of putting a final coat of paint on our Dynasty rankings. And when I was going over the running back rankings, guys, I don't know who to rank at the second running back. I think we can all universally agree, for better or for worse, Bijan Robinson is the RB1 in Dynasty. There's no argument from anyone there, but there is serious issues with every single running back at running back too. It's like a big pile of throw up on the wall, Matt Kelly. So I'm curious to how you guys are parsing this out, because it's either this guy is old, or this guy is on a 1-year deal, or this guy's young and unproven. This guy has a backfield mate. What is Player Profiler doing, guys, with the RB2, RB3, and the rest of the top of the rankings?
I have a question for you, Alan. Let me answer your question with a question. Okay? If I offered you whatever the RB2 and RB3 is, I'll grab the RB2 from the rankings, I'll grab the RB3 from the rankings, whatever rankings they are. Pick two running backs that might be RB1, might be RB2, might be RB3, right? The RB1 is Bijan Robinson. If you had Bijan Robinson and I offered you the Dynasty RB2 and the Dynasty RB3 for Bijan Robinson, would you take it?
Yes. I'm always going to take two chances rather than one when they're all that tightly knit together.
I think it depends on the league size a little bit for this question, but I don't know. I'm kind of on the Bijan side. There are no question marks, and I have potentially 25 points per game. I don't know if you guys saw it. Bijan looked pretty good last night, and we have, I made an offer. We'll talk about him in a little bit, but I offered Breece Hall and a second for Jahmyr Gibbs in an FFPC $500 league, and it was turned down in about 2 minutes without a counter. There's no trades to make with this next wave. Nobody wants to dive in to the Breece Hall, the Jonathan Taylor tier right now. There's so much indecision, and if we're talking about we talk about this year having concerns, and then the clarity of the future is also affected by it. So I don't know. I'm with Matt. I think that's a great question, Matt. But I think most people are taking the Bijan side now.
Theo, what if it's Jahmyr Gibbs and Saquon Barkley for Bijan Robinson in elite? I mean,
okay, now we're talking. Yeah, now we're talking.
That's my point. You're two of the guys that you consider to be the 2 and 3.
I actually think this is a non-issue. The 1, 2, 3 in Dynasty is very clear to me. It's who's the 4, 5, 6. That's a debate. That's fine.
Who's 3? Who's 3, Matt?
Well, no, that's the whole point. The whole point is we know who number 1 is. We know who 2 and 3 are. We just don't know the order of 2, 3, or 3, 2. Okay, but it is Jahmyr Gibbs and Jonathan Taylor.
Yes.
That's what it is. It ain't Breece Hall. That's the point. It ain't Breece Hall any more than it's Kenneth Walker, right? Kenneth Walker received less competition in the last 6 months for his backfield touches in the form of an unproven Zach Charbonnet, okay, who is not this dynamic pass catcher. Yes, you can catch 36 passes in college and not be a dynamic receiver. They could be swing passes and dump offs and check downs. And then over the course of a full college season, sure, you put up 36 catches. That doesn't mean as much as being able to show real dynamism at the combine, be fast, have a great agility score. That typically translates better into how you're going to be in space and as a receiver getting downfield and actually putting up a positive target depth, right? There's only a handful of running backs where the average target depth of all receivers in the NFL, hovers just under 10, right? And then if you're above that as a running back, that you're in rare company, okay? And just because you put up 36 catches in college doesn't mean you're in that class at all, right? So this idea that we know Zach Charbonnet is this world's better receiver than Kenneth Walker is not factual until we actually see how Charbonnet operates in NFL games. What is his targets per route run, his target rate on PlayerProfiler? What is his target depth? Then we can start to make an assessment, but this is a late second-round pick. This guy's a coin flip to ever have a fantasy relevant season in the NFL. And now you look at Breece Hall, and he actually has Dalvin Cook, an all-pro running back, age 27. Yes, his efficiency has been in decline. Yes, he's not the player he was. He's post-Apex. But if you're going to be cratering Kenneth Walker in Dynasty based on what just happened to Breece Hall, especially the signing of Dalvin Cook on the heels of news that there is renewed soreness in the knee, then you got to get Breece Hall the hell out of your top 3.
How about Barkley, though?
So Barkley's Barkley's, for us, he's close, but
five
for me,
you guys,
you have the lack of clarity for where he's going to play next season. I think that's slightly baked into this. You also have the age where he's 26 and a half. I love Barkley, and I think Barkley where we have him is about right. We have him, high in our overall as well. He's a fantastic player, but again, that age matters a little bit, and we've also seen Barkley have big injuries in his NFL career. He's bounced back from them, but Alan, it's hard to bounce back from too, so that has to also be baked in a little bit here. But
Barkley was pretty healthy last year, and now, and Barkley's going to be somewhere next year, right? He's either going to be on the Giants with another franchise tag, or he's going to be the lead back somewhere else. He's going to be, sure, the age, we only think about running backs, guys, in these 1 to 2 year windows now, right? I think we've all agreed on that, other than Bijan Robinson. We're going to think about him in like a 3 or 4 year window. So that's what I'm saying. You're talking like Breece Hall, scratch him off, right? I don't even think that this is I think it's almost like a chalk take at this point that he doesn't belong up there, because Dalvin Cook, what if Dalvin Cook has a decent year and they run it back again next year, right? This thing with Dalvin Cook could last 2 years.
Yeah, Dalvin Cook's 28 years old, and guys, Aaron Jones was pretty good as a 28-year-old, 27-and-a-half-year-old, last year with Aaron Rodgers, and I think it's kind of like Dalvin Cook's not showing up to New York to tread water. Like, he's going to have a role. I think, what you bring up the potential for Dalvin Cook to last 2 years. If Aaron Rodgers exceeds Matt Kelly's expectations for him this year, and he has a 2-year run here, you could see Dalvin Cook being part of that 2-year run as the Jets are kind of chasing everything, and he ends up retiring as a Jet. So Dalvin Cook, he had, some regression as a runner last year. Towards the tail end of the year, it looked like the season kind of caught up with him. Not a great playoff game against the Giants. But again, like Aaron Rodgers, if he wants to involve his backs out of the backfield in the passing game, like, he'll get Dalvin Cook the ball, he's going to call the offense or at least have a great big say in the offense. So Dalvin Cook definitely followed Aaron Rodgers over there. They played in the same division for years. Much like Allen Lazard, much like Randall Cobb coming over, this was an Aaron Rodgers move. And I think Dalvin Cook right now is, I'm not going to use the redraft word, but Dalvin Cook's a little bit underrated for the value he's going to bring to the table this year.
Matt Kelly, Dalvin Cook, like I said, could be there for a couple of years. This is not a one-year thing at all. And Rich Simonini, the Jets beat writer, said with no uncertain terms, Dalvin Cook, he's not projecting, he's been told that Dalvin Cook is the starting running back for the New York Jets in week 1.
No shit.
Yeah.
What?
This is
right.
a get
I
Breece
know
Hall
that,
out of
yes, I know that we as fantasy gamers became infatuated with Breece Hall and the efficiency that he posted on Player Profiler in the passing game. He looks like one of those rare running backs that we've been looking for that has a target depth that is above average. The rare running back with a target depth that was above average. In his draft class, the 2022 draft class, he was the most athletic running back in the class. 97th percentile 40 time, 98th percentile speed score because he's 217 pounds, with an incredible burst score of 94th percentile. He is one of the most athletic running backs in the league. He was exceptional with an 11.5 yards per reception, 2.27 yards per route run last year. That's incredible. Now, the catch rate was low, but and he had 5 drops, which was astounding. But he was running routes downfield like a receiver, right? But what do coaches look at? They don't look at yards per route run. Okay, if you went around the league and you talked to coaches and you said, how important is yards per route run to your running back evaluations? How many of them would know what the fuck you were talking about? Do you understand that? And that's like the singular metric that everybody points to. They point to the speed score and they point to the yards per route run as a rookie. And they're like, well, this type of running back, this category of running back cannot fail in the NFL. He has to be a locked-in top 3 dynasty asset given his age 22. He came out early. Guys checking all. He's still a young 22-year-old at this point. He's like, what if Jonathan Taylor was a fantastic receiver? Well, that's Breece Hall, right? That's what we're talking about. He's that good. For whatever reason, whether it be the drops, whether it be issues with pass protection, I don't know what happened last year. But last year, remember, the Jets never turned the starting running back job completely over, the primary back job completely over to Breece Hall. They refused to do it. We're all expecting, and the week we were expecting them to do it, he tears his ACL, right? So it was never put on wax. Breece Hall as a workhorse back and an all-purpose stud putting up 25 fantasy points a game was never put on wax. It was in the factory. The songs were laid down, right? They had all the recordings tight. You know, all the musicians came in and they did all their parts. Everything was in the factory, in the record factory, ready to be pressed. And then he tears his ACL, and that record, that song catalog of what we could have, what we should have from Breece Hall has never seen the light of day. And these record executives in New York have no idea what they have. You have to understand, it is possible, especially because he hasn't been practicing at full strength since the knee injury. It is very possible that none of the Jets coaches appreciate what they have in Breece Hall.
Yeah, and Aaron Rodgers has literally no reference point for him, Matt, because they have hardly been on the field together at all. And I don't think Aaron Rodgers is going back and watching all the Breece Hall games from last year, and he's not, plugging in a bunch of Iowa State tape. So it's kind of like Aaron Rodgers is like, okay, whatever. We're going to go with the guys that I want. I'm going to get the ball to him. And, it's unfortunate because I think certain organizations might have treated this a little bit differently. Like I think Breece Hall is very, very, very talented. But at the end of the day, the Jets are showing you exactly what they think. If they had more confidence in Breece Hall, they could have gone a lot cheaper, Matt. They could have, signed just about any kind of running
Kareem
back.
Hunt.
They just they could
Leonard
have had like
Fournette.
a little bit of depth, or they could have taken somebody in the 4th round. And I'll say this: we heard all those rumors that the Jets wanted Jahmyr Gibbs, and they were going to take him if he became available to them in the draft last year. And there's no reason to think that that was fake based on the actions they've taken here. So, he could have
Theo,
gotten dusted months ago.
I just want to pause right here. I want everyone to put in the chat who they think the RB2 and the RB3 is in Dynasty moving forward. And while you're doing that, we're going to take a quick break. And on the other side, we're going to continue talking about some of these Dynasty backfields and how they're shaping up, because Dynasty rankings are important. While everyone else is still looking at all the rankings from over the summer, this is an opportunity to make trades. We'll be right back after this.
And I wish that I knew where this next piece was located.
I was trying to kill time to give you
No, I did. I had
opportunity.
to go look up and figure out where the hell where the hell this video is that we're going to run, and I found it. Thank you very much. Thank you for filibustering. We needed a little more filibuster because I'm that incompetent, but I've figured everything out. I know what we're doing. We're running it right now. Hey, it's the Podfather. I have great news. The 2023 draft kit is live. It is world famous. Why? Because it is the best resource for winning fantasy football championships that exists. There are rankings and cheat sheets for every format you can imagine. We have projections both at the team level and the player level. And wherever you are, you can click on a player, open them up, and see in-depth written analysis about what to expect in fantasy football from that player this year. And then you can click on the team, and you can get even more in-depth analysis, all the drivers of fantasy production, both in a positive and negative direction for that team, including a signature trend. And the graphics are incredible. So these team insights, they give you the team-level projections, the vacated targets, the vacated areas, and that one dynamic for each team that you need to know when making decisions on draft day. And we added a bunch of features. Individual cheat sheets for Theo and Billy and Dario. So you could take your favorite analyst and download their personal draft cheat sheet. And then in the commissioners section, also brand new this year, Memphis Young lays out everything you need to know to manage a league, do's, don'ts, tips, and what the more innovative fantasy commissioners are doing this year. That's presented by Trophy Smack. The whole package is presented by the Fantasy Football Players Championship, the FFPC, Ray Garvin, Derek Brown, the best minds in the industry contributing analysis. It's certainly not the most inexpensive draft kit on the market, but it is the best. PlayerProfiler.com/draft kit. PlayerProfiler.com/draft kit. Go get it.
I love that commercial, Podfather. I think it really does well in explaining what you're offering. The only thing, my only critique of the commercial is you could tell that you're a little self-conscious about the price. Do not be. I buy all these draft kits, and I'm telling you, it is very apparent to the consumer, which I've been buying your draft kit forever, that it represents the best value. I think the people, once they kind of just peek around, they're going to... there's a reason why other draft kits are like $9 or like $14 or $35. This is the most encompassing draft kit, and it represents the best. In fact, I would argue it's too cheap.
We have Alan Seslowsky with incredible videos on Bijan Robinson and Travis Kelce, and incredibly well-written write-ups as well. So you get the Allen factor as well, which was certainly a big help in the draft kit.
Now you're lowering the value.
We were gonna we were gonna charge $99, but then Alan did 2 of the top 10 players. So Matt's like, we got to lower it.
Yeah,
got to
Matt,
take it down a notch.
I always say fantasy football players are the only people on earth that will spend $100 to make 50.
Yes.
That's me as a fantasy gamer. That's true, except for Theo. Theo actually is he actually makes money at fantasy football. And the other thing with Theo is he is the mind behind the draft kit. Like, the draft kit's better than it's ever been, and that's because of Theo's involvement. We now have a guy that's paying a lot more attention to what we're doing with our content. Our content was a little more freelanced in previous years. Theo has come in and really tightened it up. And on the podcast, the Mind of Mansion podcast, I get a little even more into it with Theo. He is the August MVP, as I said, and he's been absolutely killing it. You have to sit in my chair and talk to him every day like I do to get a full appreciation of what he brings to the table. The guy has been an absolute superstar.
Employee of the month.
I appreciate that, guys. I'm excited about what we have on tap for this season. And Matt, we have some super, super, super cool announcements. We're not going to announce them today, but like in the next week or two, we have some awesome new shows, some awesome new people coming to work with us. This is going to be like a really, really cool season for us. So I'm stoked, man.
I love it. I love it, guys. All right, we'll be following along all season long. We were talking about the Dynasty running back rankings.
Investor Zach Barrett is in the chat, and he writes, this is so funny. He writes, Jesus, never would have invested in this company had I knew Allen would be involved.
I'm not involved. I
beautiful.
contributed 2 articles. That's it. So still invest. Still invest.
You're involved in the Sonic. This is a big show.
I'm trying to help you out here.
We have people on Twitter, big analysts, Andrew Cooper just recently talking about how this show inspired him to become a fantasy analyst. Can you believe that shit?
Yeah.
Yes, I can't believe, like, I'm so grateful that anyone would put that out there in the world and share that, and it really does like swell me up it's amazing. It's such a great feeling to know that, you know, the stuff you've been doing, whether it's just the scheduling of the shows on the weekend, you know, around your family, and Nate Liss and I around our families to try to make sure we can be available for the show times that people want, and then the editing late at night, and then that all ends up paying off, and that there are people out there listening, because all you do is you hit the upload button and you're done, right? You hit the upload button, you put it up there on the internet, and you're like, I think it was good, the content we put together. I had fun doing it. I think it was funny. I was laughing while I was editing it. And then to find out years later that, oh, not only was I listening, but this was actually making an impact, that is huge.
Yeah, no, it's, you know, that it's funny. Gary V, the online entrepreneur, always talks about, like, people are always worried about like follower count and growing their account, these vanity metrics, but we don't realize it's so much more powerful when like 5 people, forget tens of thousands of followers, when 5 people said, you inspired me to do this, way more powerful. And those are usually the silent majority. So you are demonstrating that right now. And for anyone out, go ahead, guys.
Yeah, and shout out to Andrew Cooper. He came on First Class Fantasy with Billy Muzio and I, absolutely killed it. And he's going to be on Mind of Mansion soon, right, Matt? This is coming up.
Yes. Yeah, Andrew Cooper is going to be on Mind of Mansion, and Andrew Erickson. So we have 2 Andrews coming up, back-to-back weeks coming up.
Cool.
And they're both new to the program. So there are certain guests, which we're always going to have. R.C. Fisher, right, comes on.
One of my favorites, by the way. And aside from hot takes, he's just smooth. He's relaxed. I forgot I was going to send you that note. I think that he is my number 1 all-time favorite Mind of Mansion guest. And I loved when Theo was on. That's how I fell in love with Theo, right? When he was on Mind of Mansion.
That was a great Mind of Mansion. And I'll say, Matt, you dropped an absolute banger with Josh Larkey. That was incredible. The one you did with Dwayne this week was incredible.
4 hours. 4 hours with Larkey, man.
You've been on a nice run heading into the season with the Mind of Mansion. So this is but yeah, the Larkey one was long. Like if you're a 1.5 speed guy for your podcast, you're going to be able to take it in. If not, you gotta break it up. It's like a couple of gym sessions.
You've got to break it up for sure. And it basically, what I've told everybody here is like, I am a workhorse. I will tell you when I'm tired. Keep putting me out there. Don't you dare take me out of the game. Right? Just keep feeding me content ideas. Keep feeding me shows. Theo's like, you got to go on with Deepak and talk injuries. I'm like, fine, we'll do that. Keep feeding me. I will raise my hand and tell you when I need a break. But today, as of today, this is 6 streams in 6 days. And I'm just as energized as I was 6 days ago for the first one. And we're rocking and rolling right through. Keep feeding me, boys. Keep feeding me. I'll keep shooting my shot. I'll keep doing these shows.
One more Gary V take. He was talking about, hey, I could do what he was doing with standing on stage. I could do this for 2 days and not get tired. If you ask me just to go take the dog out for a walk, I'm tired. I don't want to, because I don't want to do it. Anything you don't want to do, you get tired quickly. Anything you love doing, you could do it for days and weeks and years and decades. I mean, that's exactly what it sounds like. I want to just get back on track, guys. I want to, because this is important. This is a dead period. And I put that in air quotes for Dynasty and people get bored and they make these crazy trades. We need to sort out the running back rankings and what's going on in some of these backfields. We all agreed that Bijan Robinson is the RB1. I have to say, and maybe I just have too much alone time, that I'm starting to think Tyler Algier is just not going away. So my question to you, and I'll start with Matt, flip it over to Theo in a moment here. If Tyler Algier is involved, 10 carries a game, 12 touches a game, does it even matter? It seems like there might be enough to go around.
It's the high value touches, though, Alan. Like if Tyler Algier is keeping Bijan fresh with a change of pace back, subbing in for him every couple of series, that's perfectly fine. And Tyler Algier, I think, would be fine with 10 carries a game and maybe like one target a game. But at the end of the day, they're going to use Bijan in creative ways. They're going to get him the ball out in space. He looks incredible. I mean, we don't want to get too hyped about a preseason game, and it certainly shouldn't change what we think about somebody. But Bijan looked like Bijan last night. He looked every bit the player you wanted him to look like. He had a one-handed catch. He looks incredibly elusive. They're talking about using him in ways like Deebo Samuel was used in San Francisco. Like, This is not your ordinary bell cow running back. This is going to be a really, really fun ride. And that's why we've had him at RB1 overall well before the NFL draft at Player Profiler.
And he's only going up in Dynasty. He's only going up so that it's going to be a debate of, do I give up Gibbs and Jonathan Taylor to get Bijan Robinson? Like that's on our Dynasty Dominator app, which you can get in the App Store and on Google Play, and on the Dynasty Deluxe package. We have the Dynasty Deluxe package at Player Profiler with all kinds of Dynasty tools. We just rolled out the new ADP tracker that actually pulls in ADPs both from the FFPC Dynasty Leagues, the tight end premium Dynasty Leagues, as well as Sleepers traditional Dynasty Leagues and their Superflex Leagues. So you can track the ADPs on all these players. And then, we actually put the ADPs in our draft planner. And if we're ahead of consensus, we'll put the guy in green. And if we're behind consensus, we'll put the guy in red right on the draft planner. It's a draft board with our rankings overlaid and the ADPs overlaid. It's actually incredible. So that's all there in the Dynasty Deluxe package. You can use the trade analyzer, which is another feature, and be like, whoa, it's actually, I can't believe this is close. In my history of this business, I've never seen this where the QB1, running back 1, wide receiver 1, tight end 1 would be as valuable as the next two players at the position. This is uncharted territory that Bijan is entering, but it's also because Breece Hall is not appreciated by the Jets. We've seen this already with DeAndre Swift. Sadly, at this point in his career, the best comp for Breece Hall is DeAndre Swift. And if Breece Hall ends up getting traded in a year and a half, no one's allowed to be surprised that there's something else happening behind the scenes where this team is not all in on this player. I do not know why. And everyone knows that that's true with Kenneth Walker because they went out and drafted Zach Charbonnet. That's also true of Zach Charbonnet versus Kenneth Walker. It's the same dynamic with Dalvin Cook and Breece Hall, except I would argue that there's actually more evidence in Seattle that they're bought into Kenneth Walker than there is in New York that the team is bought in to Breece Hall.
I mean, to an extent, Antonio Gibson averages 14.5 points a game as a rookie, and Washington never fully went in. Like, Breece Hall is a guy that I have way too much exposure to in Dynasty. I would really wish that I could argue with you, Matt, and really like bang the table and say we're wrong. This is Breece's an insulated elite piece, but at the end of the day, this is a guy that has had 4 top 15 weekly performances in his career. So, the sample size is, in a per game basis, the guy only played 7 games. That's great. But at the end of the day, we've seen a lot of guys in the NFL who have come in and ran pure for a short extended period of time, and it doesn't always work out for us in terms of dynasty. It's unfortunate, but I think the other question, Alan, is, and not to deter our running back question, is, a month and a half ago, we would have, when we were doing like dynasty startup values, like now running back gets pushed down even further, because when it becomes to the positional argument, when you go Bijan Robinson, we all agreed was somewhere right. You took him 101, Alan, when we did this exercise. And that looks a little smarter today than it did before because it's such a scarce commodity. But any way you want to cut it.
Theo, that's it right there. It's like, yes, Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase are probably better assets, but when there's no clear RB2 and there's no workhorse running backs, Bijan becomes even more valuable.
Alan's might have some "told you so" in him this weird. I'm
Alan already dropped it. He dropped it. I told you so on me on the phone, Matt, because of the Amon-Ra St. Brown love we're showing.
Yeah,
and Alan's been on ARSB as the Dynasty wide receiver
victory
3
lap season
forever.
for Alan this year. I'm excited for it. I'm really excited for it. By the way, in the chat, Depeche Patel says Saquon is the RB2. Hey Depeche, can I give you a little bit of a breaking news, Depeche? Let me give you some breaking news, okay? I've got some breaking news for you. We've been on Saquon this entire time. Do you realize how punished Saquon has been in Dynasty the last year? And we specifically were standing alone saying, no, we actually have Saquon ahead of Eckler. We have Saquon ahead of Christian McCaffrey and ahead of a bunch of these young running backs. We were the guys that were saying, no, Saquon's actually an elite dynasty running back still. He's young. He takes care of his body. He treats it like a temple. This is a great dynasty asset. You're preaching to the choir, bro, but it's also dynasty. He's not the RB2. As much as I love Saquon, and I think he's teed up for a couple years of greatness, he's many, 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 many years older than Jahmyr Gibbs. And I'm not even a big Jahmyr Gibbs fan, okay? You ask Theo, right? Theo and I have argued about Jahmyr Gibbs for months, right? I'm a guy that's drafting Travis Etienne in seasonal leagues over Jahmyr Gibbs just because Jahmyr Gibbs is, brand new to the NFL. And he's gonna have a bunch of games where it's clear that he's just not ready to assume a full workload or even a significant role in the offense. And those are games that Travis Etienne is not going to have to deal with because he's been fully acclimated to the NFL and he's a clear workhorse. But Jahmyr Gibbs is the next superstar on the board after Bijan Robinson, and he's only 21 years old. In Dynasty, you cannot have, unless you're at the peak, I'm going for it this year, I'm winning it all this year, and I'm blowing it up next year. If that's all baked in, then I can see the argument for Saquon Barkley, but get out of here, man, with Saquon at the RB2. I'm not a Jahmyr Gibbs fan, and even I know Jahmyr Gibbs is the RB2.
Yeah, age is a powerful thing in Dynasty fantasy football. You mentioned DeAndre Swift, guys. This Eagles backfield for Dynasty, it's confusing. But so one of these guys is going to emerge as a really good fantasy asset. DeAndre Swift, I mean, he was a healthy scratch of the day. That's good for him. Rashad Penny, he broke off a big run as soon as he was given the ball. You have Boston Scott there. Obviously, that's just like a 1 week fill-in type of guy. And then Trey Sermon still looming out there. And then I will give you guys credit, PlayerProfiler and Kenneth Gainwell. It's almost like you have to say it all in one breath. So this is an important backfield, but an ambiguous backfield for Dynasty.
It's actually easy, Alan. I think this is easy in Dynasty and in redraft. If you want DeAndre Swift, you get Kenneth Gainwell. If you have Kenneth Gainwell, considering adding DeAndre Swift, to me, Penny is the least likely long-term play here. But between Swift and Gainwell, I think I'm going to get something great. And if there's either one of them goes down, they have so much contingent upside in that offense. They're the two best pass catching backs in that offense. Again, like I think Penny has a couple of outs, but I'm betting on Swift and Gainwell. I've been doing this combination in drafts for months now, where I take Swift in like the 7th round, and then I take Gainwell, before when he was a, fourth. There you go, the Dynasty Dominator app.
Guess what? There's a chapter in here. Okay, what's the one thing you don't do in seasonal leagues? What's the one thing you don't do in the FFPC Players Championship? You don't bet against yourself. You don't handcuff your running back. We don't wear condoms in fantasy football.
The condom.
This is Dynasty. This is a different format. There's a reason why if I were to write a seasonal league book, there would be a whole chapter making fun of people that handcuff running backs. In Dynasty, there's a whole chapter on why you must handcuff your running backs. If you have Bijan and you're not going out and acquiring Tyler Allegier, you're doing it wrong. And if you have Swift or Gainwell, it is in your best interest to try to acquire the other guy. They are the handcuff for each other, unlike Rashad Penny, who has a role that is unique to Rashad Penny. And they both have potential standalone value. There's no reason not to handcuff them, right? You're investing a late round pick in Kenneth Gainwell. If you have DeAndre Swift, you were obligated to make sure you use one of those late picks on Kenneth Gainwell or trade a rookie 3rd rounder, rookie 4th rounder to lock that in, because in Dynasty, we have deep benches and there's not a lot available on the waiver wire. The reason why you're not out here handcuffing in seasonal leagues is because you have to draft these guys a lot earlier in seasonal leagues, and you're precluding yourself from real upside and having two unique players on two unique teams and two unique situations, both smashing. When you handcuff, you can't have that. It's different in Dynasty. The waiver wire has very little options. The opportunity cost for handcuffing is much lower in Dynasty. And when you have these guys for their careers, when something happens to one and it opens up an opportunity for another, the upside is much greater in Dynasty for a handcuff.
Yeah. And so is there an opportunity? How do you get these guys on your team? That's really the question I want to ask you. Is like, for example, we've had some day 3 wide receivers in the real NFL draft pop a little bit in the preseason. Someone like Jalen Hyatt, guys, had a big bomb he caught against the second team in a very public game yesterday. Is Hyatt the right way to go get Kenneth Gainwell on your roster? Is that the right way to do it?
Yes. Okay. So here's the thing. This is the beauty. I'll give you the final word, Theo. Don't worry. But this is the beauty of it, right? I said already that it was in your best interest to go get Kenneth Gainwell for a 3rd rounder. This was before.
Can't do it anymore.
Okay, this was before. You can't do that now. Everybody knows Kenneth Gainwell is a young running back with an all-purpose skill set on one of the best teams in the NFL, one of the best offenses in the NFL, and he's the starter. He's number 1 on the depth chart. He's getting the first-team reps, more first-team reps in practice than any of the other running backs, and he's the 2-minute drill back. That's where the most fantasy points are scored. So you can't get Kenneth Gainwell for that now. But if you did happen to draft Jalen Hyatt and he's popping in preseason, you could take one guy that's popping and use that, accrued value to go get another guy that's popping. But Gainwell is actually real. Gainwell's a real asset. Okay, we've seen Gainwell thrive in the playoffs against the Giants in the playoffs, where he was getting a 50% snap share, out-snapping Miles Sanders in the Super Bowl. Okay, Jalen Hyatt catching a bomb against the second-team offense in preseason is nothing compared to what we've seen from Kenneth Gainwell. So you make that trade every time.
Right, and I think that's a way to get it done.
Yeah, I think, right now we have a tremendous amount of steam with the 3rd round wide receivers, Alan. Like, Jalen Hyatt, Cedric Tillman, Tank Dell. They're all getting a lot of love right now in the preseason. But the hit rates for these 3rd round wide receivers have just been terrible since Deontay Johnson and Terry McLaurin. None of them have hit. The best fantasy season for any of them was Josh Palmer, and Josh Palmer was like wide receiver 39-ish. Didn't crack wide receiver 3 land, and that was the most successful wide receiver to come out of the third round since 2019. So I don't know. I think there's an argument to be made for selling all of these guys. I mean, I love the way Tank Dell looks right now.
Whoa. Paint with a broad brush much, Theo? My goodness gracious.
No, Tank.
No, wait. No, your larger trend is true. We have Josh Downs. We have Tank Dell. We have a bunch of third-round wide receivers. Cedric Tillman, right? Most of these guys are going to bust. And spoiler alert, right? I think we have a spoiler alert here. Let me pull up the spoiler alert. Shh! Spoiler alert. Okay. If you were a wide receiver at Tennessee last year, you're going to bust in the NFL. Okay, so Hyatt's going to bust, Tillman's going to bust, most of these guys are going to bust. I need to see it to believe it with Tank Dell, right? Where you have an actual elf at wide receiver. I don't think any more than Santa is going to thrive in the NFL at the wide receiver position. I don't think the elves are either. Okay, so I'm fading Santa and the elves and the fucking reindeer, okay, in fantasy football at the wide receiver position in particular. I just don't think. Maybe a reindeer. If there was I don't know. Maybe there's a reindeer out there. I can tell you one thing. Michael Wilson is not involved in Christmas in any way. Okay, yes. Michael Wilson's a straight up dog. Michael Wilson is one of the best receivers in this class. R.C. Fisher agrees with me. The Senior Bowl agrees with me. Everybody that knows anything agrees with me. There are certain situations where a guy is underappreciated at the college level for whatever reason. Could be target competition like Terry McLaurin. Could be small school like Deontay Johnson. And in Michael Wilson's case, it was just an unrelenting litany of injuries at Stanford that robbed him of production, with the exception of a fantastic freshman season, which is what we look at. The Breakout Finder app loves freshman year production. And I love Michael Wilson. And he is not like the others. We need to be discerning about this with these rules of thumb. He is not like the others. The others have these flaws where Josh Downs very small, right? Not his size-adjusted athleticism is a concern. Whatever happened in this Tennessee Volunteers offense with their passing game being like more like a video game, those guys are all Josh Palmer to me, right? It's just another Josh Palmer. Hit me with another Josh Palmer, Cedric Tillman, Josh Palmer, Josh Palmer, Josh Palmer, Josh Palmer. If Tank Dell breaks out, it'll be a total outlier. It'll be crazy and good for him, by the way. Great for him, right? But we're talking about chasing outliers, not what we do on this show. So yeah, I just want to put everything out there. I believe that there were enough receivers drafted in the third round this year, and that this class was deep enough that I believe we will see one breakout from the third round. I think we're going to break the trend this year, and it's going to be Michael Wilson.
Well, we have Michael Wilson ahead of Jalen Hyatt, and I think we've been on that train for a while now at Player Profiler. Even with Jalen Hyatt has moved up slightly, since the NFL draft, but he's still, behind Michael Wilson. And I think a lot of sites have Hyatt well ahead. So we're definitely a Michael Wilson. Company right now, Alan.
You've talked about this numerous times over the years, guys, that if you're writing a set of dynasty rules or guidelines, I don't want to call them rules, it's the sexy day 3 wide receiver. Don't fall for it. It's like going out and finding like a hot transsexual. You think it's a woman and you reach under the skirt and you find a nice Sunday surprise. You know what I'm saying? It's go for the day 2
I actually don't know what you're saying, Alan.
Alan's been taking some trips
I'm going
to
pretend you didn't just say any of that.
That's never happened to you?
I don't know what you're talking about. I do like Sundays, though. I love ice cream. And my wife and daughter are traveling this whole weekend, so I have the whole house to myself. I'm just trying to figure out what to do with myself. Last night, I went out and I ordered takeout. I got both Thai and Chinese because I couldn't decide. That's what you do, right? That's what you do when you're like, oh, my wife's not going to hold me accountable. If I came home with both Thai and Chinese. She would look at me like, "What are you doing? You know, that was a total waste of time, a total waste of money. Pick a restaurant and go with it." But now that I'm here, I can do whatever I want. Like, I'm free. I went skinny dipping in my pool, like just naked, just feeling the water on my penis. Felt great.
Did you go up against the jet with the penis? I love that.
That sounds dangerous.
The Jacksonville move right there.
I'm in a condo and I do that. And there's 18 other units in the condo, and I'll kind of, edge over, put my hands up on the thing, and that's just one of the best sensations. It was like when you were climbing the gym ropes when you were a young kid, and you got that sensation on your penis, like when you were in 5th grade. You know,
we have a little better. We have a little bit better, pool etiquette in the Northeast than Northern Florida, Alan.
Cheap.
Yeah, no, I wasn't humping the jet or anything, but yes, I did swim naked. I've been, and then it just reminded me because last night I went and I had a little ice cream cone. We have these little mini ice cream cones from Trader Joe's.
We got those too.
And so I had a little mini ice cream cone, and then normally, my wife or my daughter is there holding me accountable, and I'm trying to, hey, moderation, right? But again, the moderation checks were gone. So I just went right back in more ice cream. I was like, what? I kind of feel like another ice cream cone. You know what I'm going to do? A second ice cream cone! Yeah! So
Whatever
that's what it's been. That's what it's been.
Porn.
And I was like, I could really, maybe I'll have another beer. I cracked another beer. Right? So I'm having multiple beers, multiple ice creams, naked. It's been great.
Whatever you need to fuel the content till we get to the opening day of the NFL season. It's like it's nonstop, guys. We're churning it out at Player Profiler, and Alan, you're churning it out too, man. You're dropping pods on here with Matt and I. You're dropping on RotoWire. You're on Sirius. You're a content machine right now too, man.
Yeah, that's the life we chose, as the Godfather says, right? Guys, I think it's important getting back onto and by the way, I've experienced that same thing that Matt Kelly's talking about. Your wife's away. Back in the day, you were alone as a quote single guy. You're out trying to philander, but when you're in our 40s and married, man, the food makes us happy, right? The food makes us happy. Watching.
I haven't left the house.
Yeah, no,
I haven't left the house. I've just been pumping out content, riding my bike, coming back. I mean, you got to follow at Player Profiler on TikTok. I shot 5 different player take videos from my bike ride. It's been a fertile period for the Podfather with creativity lately, because 2 years ago I did a video where I was going down a hill and I just pulled up my phone, and because it was a moment in time where I don't know if you guys remember this. Tell me if you remember this. There was about a 2 or 3 week period where Sam Darnold was getting steamed up draft boards because his offensive coordinator came from LSU and worked with Joe Burrow and was going to fix him. Do you guys remember that narrative?
Joe Brady.
Yes.
Joe Brady was going to fix Sam Darnold. And these are some of the things that I think about on my bike ride where I'm like, I can't believe these idiots are falling for this. So then sometimes I pull my phone out and I was like, Sam Darnold stinks! And then I put out the people on TikTok loved it and whatnot. So then it's been 2 years and I haven't had a single new take on my bike, and then suddenly 5 takes all at once.
Yeah, that's the power of social media and content creation. You could do it anywhere. The expectation of highly produced videos sometimes isn't there. We all.
It's like these. I'm watching and guess what else I'm doing? I'm playing Metallica around the house. This is a thing that's happening. Like, you come over to my house, you're like, what the fuck is going on? There's Chinese food containers out. Fade to Black is blasting. There's a naked guy in the pool. There's an ice cream melting on the counter. What the fuck is going on here? This is crazy.
We need to check your browser history to fully get to find out exactly what category you've been watching.
I'm watching a Metallica documentary, and it's one of these things where it's like, hey, these guys, they'll write an entire album in a 5-day stretch, and then they'll go years and not have any new ideas. It's crazy.
All right, guys. Back over. We'll get the show back on track. One of the best features in some of these fantasy football apps for Dynasty is the trending. You could see who's being dropped. You could see who's being added. I want to talk about some of the players because, you have to really clean out your dynasty rosters, those last 4 or 5 spots. Like
I want to get back to that. We're going to get back to that. But I put a pin in a topic about a half an hour ago, and I need to circle back to it because Theo said something very interesting, and we can't leave it alone. We can't leave it behind. He said that the Falcons are going to be drawing up all these creative ways to get the ball to Bijan Robinson in the passing game.
In general.
I don't disagree. Okay? And that's another thing my wife, she's like, you with the double negatives, just say you agree. Why do you not disagree? And I was like, it has a different, saying I don't disagree has a little bit different connotation.
It's broadcasting versus proper English. Broadcasting is a different language. It's a different medium.
Thank you, Alan. I wish I could. I'm just going to call you, Alan, when I'm in these dilemmas with my wife. I'm just going to call you up. But here's the thing. This is another thing that's happening this weekend. A lot of double negatives this weekend, fellas. So it's just, I'm free. So anyway, let's talk about Drake London and Kyle Pitts, because everything I'm hearing, reading, seeing from Bijan Robinson, the Falcons coaches, everything tells me I should have Kyle Pitts and Drake London on the block in Dynasty. I am actively shopping Drake London, even though few wide receivers have ever had more impressive peripheral metrics as a rookie. When you look at target rate, targets per route run, you look at target share, he was an incredible target earner, especially for a rookie. But the target competition was low. He was a top 10 pick. So if you're a top 10 pick, you're going to command a few extra targets regardless, just because the team is trying to validate their draft day selections in the draft capital. And some players can post, have lucky advanced metric seasons where, for whatever reason, whether it be Christian Watson and others, things broke their way last year, right? There are certain seasons where everyone would agree it's going to be very difficult for player X to replicate their advanced metrics from their second year, their rookie year. Chase Claypool's rookie year is a great example of this. That's why I'm not completely 100% in on Christian Watson, because I've seen this movie before with Chase Claypool, and so I'm cautious. I'm cautious with these rookies, and especially when a rookie has an rookie year numbers, whether they be advanced metrics or counting stats, that on their face appear unsustainable. Those are rookies I am happy to put on the block and just see if I can get full value in return, especially because I'm in win now mode with so many teams. And by the way, our Dynasty Deluxe package, the rankings have a win now mode and a rebuild mode and in a strategy neutral mode, which is great. I'm putting Drake London on the block, especially in win now mode, because the math doesn't add up with how he gets there this year, especially with everything we're hearing, this drumbeat around Bijan.
Drake London's a super, super, super interesting one in Dynasty, Matt. The guy had 117 targets, 72 catches. He's got the top 10 draft capital. But like you said, there's, the Arthur Smith kind of impediment. There's the fact that Desmond Ridder doesn't seem like the kind of guy that's going to necessarily elevate guys. I truly believe in Drake London as a talent, but I think that he's so insulated in Dynasty at this moment that he's a great trade up guy, where you can trade up from Drake London to get one of the the more elite guys in a package.
Theo, I just want to ask you, so Drake London plus a first gets you to a Olave, something like that?
I think
more than that.
I think you can get more than Olave with Drake London in a first.
People love Drake London in Dynasty, bro, and they love Kyle Pitts still. But here's the thing. Drake London puts up a underwhelming season. We can all point back at the rookie year and point to Bijan in the passing game, and they upgrade their quarterback. Let's say that they somehow find their way into Drake May. Then all of a sudden, everyone's back in on London, right? That's the devil's advocate where maybe you shouldn't put him on the block in Dynasty. He is so insulated. He is a great asset just to hold on to. He can't lose much value. That's fair. Well, what if Kyle Pitts misses expectations again? His Dynasty value is actually more fragile because all of a sudden we're looking at yet another first-round tight end that's not delivering as the prince that was promised again.
If they upgrade the quarterback, though, guys, then the dynasty market will wipe him clean. If they get say Trey Lance, for example, even though that's not even like a great thing for the tight end.
Oh, that would be bad. What?
Trey Lance?
Okay.
Oh my
God!
No, Trey Lance can't play.
You want Kyler Murray in Atlanta when Caleb Williams becomes a Falcon.
That's a great call right there. Yep. But point is, I
love how Theo has an amazing take, like sick amazing takes, and then he just says it so casually.
Yeah.
Like,
so forget the name.
That's a thing that could very well happen, and that's part of why. Yes. Strategically, I know it makes sense for me to put Drake London on the block in these pedal to the metal win now teams. I am doing it, but in the back of my mind, I'm like, let's play this out. Arizona's going to have the worst record in the league. They're going to get Caleb Williams. That means Kyler Murray's going to be on the move. Where is he going to go? Who needs a quarterback badly but isn't bad enough to draft one high? Atlanta.
Yeah, I mean, Kyle Pitts is interesting because we do have 1,000-yard season, which is rare for a tight end.
Awesome,
and we do have the high target.
At age 22.
Yeah, so I don't know. It's like he has 110 targets as a rookie, which is like cracking 90 as a tight end is like incredible. So to get 110 as that young a player. He's so insulated in Dynasty. I think, Matt, you kind of just really hit the nail on the head is if you also have to gauge winning money this year. If you're right there on the fence for pushing the chips in, potentially pivoting, off of a London or Pitts is really, really, really hard to swallow. But you can get so much for them. But if you do it, you better win your league is all I got to say.
And I think this is it. You better be ready to win. And if you're going to trade them, the rule is you have to trade them and actually get a better player in return. These are not the type of assets. These assets that could really rip your face off in the years ahead with a quarterback upgrade. You cannot risk one of these 2-for-1 deals where you're giving up Pitts or you're giving up London. You're getting two good, not great players in return. You can't let that happen to you. You have to even if it is something like Alan said, even if it's for a trade up where you're actually behind in the overall value, where when you add it up, let's say even in the Dynasty Dominator app, no matter which strategy you set in the Dynasty Dominator app, you're like, oh, I'm behind. Like I'm actually giving up more value in Drake London and a pick that I'm getting back in return for Chris Olave. I think you can get more than that, but that's the type of trade you need to be angling for, where it helps you win this year, and then you have an elite asset who's young, just like Drake London, and then that first round pick or that whatever round pick you're giving up could be a bust anyway, and then you look back in 3 years and you're on the positive side of that trade, and you have a championship also on the shelf.
Substitute out the name. I mean, take Drake London and Zay Flowers, right? He was pick 110, 111. Take Zay and Drake London and say, here, take this, give me back CeeDee Lamb or Chris, or whoever that guy is, Amon-Ra St. Brown. That's the type of trade you're talking about, right?
Yeah, and on the other end, if you're rebuilding, Zach Barrett's back in the chat, and he says that he can't get anything for Drake London. He has him on the block, and he can't get anything. Well, but in that league, you could be trading for him. There's tons of. If I'm rebuilding, that's like the best guy to trade for. Pitts and London are the best rebuilding assets to trade for, but you don't even have to do it now. We know because we're like elite fantasy analysts that see the future. Right, we have the best projectors of fantasy points in Billy Muzio and Dario, Billy. we know what's going to happen. There's a reason why in seasonal leagues we're behind consensus on Bijan and London and Pitts. It's the Falcons situation, and it's also the situation that we're going to find ourselves in every week in the NFC South. There's just not going to be a lot of fantasy points scored there, period. So we're lagging consensus there, right? So not everyone sees this coming like we do. So you could actually wait, and after, say, week 2, if Pitts or London are not getting the targets because they're going to Bijan in the passing game and people are getting panicked, that's when you need to strike.
Yeah, I think that's a good place to pause that conversation. I think you both gave some really good actionable advice there.
Aren't you glad that we circled back to this, that I put a pin in it?
Yes.
See, I put a pin in it. I put a pin in it, and then in my mind, I put a pin in it, and then I pulled a pin out, and I was like, we need to go back to that conversation. And then we did it, and it was great.
Yeah, agreed. And not just entertaining conversation. I think there's some real good actionable advice there.
Look, you know what's not actionable advice? From Mike Kellenoy. Mike Kellenoy is making his first foray into the chat, and Mike Kellenoy, he thinks he has a great tactic for us. This is tactical Mike. He actually has like a
like
camouflage hat.
He's hunting the predator out there and picking up Mack Hollins on waivers.
Yeah, tactical Mike. His strategy was just dump London and pick up Mack Hollins. My response is thank you, Mike. Thank you for that. And I'll tell you one thing though, he is right. Mack Hollins is going to exceed expectations this year. There's no doubt about that. But at no point in time, okay, so he's right and wrong, right? He's right. Mack Hollins is a value right now, especially in these deep leagues. Oh, my God. I'm in deep dynasty leagues. I have so much Mack Hollins. Absolutely. I'm with him on that, except at no point is this like a reason to do a trade. Okay, at no point are you rationalizing it like, well, man, I was on the fence about dealing Drake London. I'm going to do it now because I can get Mack Hollins. Okay, that's not the reason to do it. These are two totally different guys. One guy is a one-year rental who is undervalued in very deep leagues, very situational situation. It's a situational situation, as you can say, situational situation. That's not you don't people have done this before. I've done this. I'm just saying this from experience. I've talked myself into trading studs because of a sleeper that was on the roster that I also thought was going to get opportunity. I just don't want anyone to get trapped by that mentality. It's a very tricky thing that you're talking about there, Mike. Yes, fall in love with Mack Hollins, but don't let that affect how you think about Drake London.
Yeah, those guys also, their best games are going to be on your bench. So if you're in a dynasty best ball, great, but it's very hard to call the shot with players like that. So you want them on your roster, but we want projectable starts. And I think that is basically how dynasty and deeper leagues are played. Guys,
Podfather, quick question for the Podfather, Alan, not to interrupt you. 18th round underdog, Mack Hollins or Michael Wilson?
Mack Hollins. Oh, bro. Mack Hollins.
Yes, agreed.
I mean, the contingent upside on Mack Hollins is actually pretty amazing, right?
We've already seen
it. Let's say there's an injury to a wide receiver. Let's say that Marquise Brown breaks his fourth metatarsal in his foot, okay? Or Rondale Moore breaks his fourth metatarsal. Guess who else gets a lot more targets in Arizona? Greg Dortch, okay? So, or Trey McBride. Right, there are actually a lot of receivers in Arizona that could fill the void, not named Michael Wilson, because he is a third-round rookie. I think he's going to exceed expectations. But if something were to cause London or Pitts to miss games, and any wide receiver duo, if you look at Pitts and London as just a receiver duo, every receiver duo misses games every year. I mean, show me the last wide receiver duo where both played 17 games.
Let's see, who was the receiver duo?
That's good enough right there. See,
Justin Jefferson's never missed a game.
Rhetorical question.
It was a rhetorical question, Alan. Yeah. Right? You might say, oh, Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill. Nope.
Right. No, I was going to say them because Justin Jefferson hasn't missed a game in his career. I was trying to think
Justin Jefferson, KJ Osborne doesn't count. Adam Thielen absolutely missed games last year. I can go down the board, man. You don't think I've done all my research heading into these takes? People are like, oh man, this guy just talks. He just talks. That's all he does. He just turns the microphone on. They wheel out the Podfather. That's all the player profiler does. They just wheel out the Podfather every time. Must be nice.
We plug him in.
And you just plug him in.
He's AI.
And
he's
just this, this monkey that just you bang cymbals, all day, and they just plug him in. No, guys, actually, I'm a human being. Okay, I'm not a toy monkey, and I actually do my research. And when I have it all ready, I do all the research. I have the draft kit. Our world famous draft kit is the best, and I study where these teams are at in terms of their projected volume, their projected rush attempts, their projected pass attempts, all these things. So when people say something on a podcast, I can thunder in and be like, well, that doesn't actually make sense. Or when Theo asked me a very good question, and I know what the volume is going to look like, the pass volume, and I know what the depth chart looks like because of the draft kit in Arizona, I could be like, yeah, I love Michael Wilson, but just not this year, buddy. This year, it's all about Mack Hollins in terms of contingent upside because the probability that Pitts or London misses games this year is close to 100%.
Fair enough.
It's already banged up.
Fair enough, guys. I wanted, with our last 10 minutes or so, I want to give another piece of actionable advice because this is important. People come here, they're entertained, but this is the time of the year, 4 weeks before the season, where you should take a look at the bottom of your dynasty roster. Those last 3 spots, those last 4 spots. There's players that you had on there that were good pickups a month or two ago, like the Malik Davis types. But we've seen some preseason games, and when we say preseason doesn't matter, it matters for the bottom of your roster, certainly. So right now, some of the players that are trending up, Austin Watkins, I've seen Podfather pick him up in a few of the leagues that I'm in with him. Elijah Dotson, the running back on the Chargers. You have Dorian Thompson-Robinson, who's looked amazing.
Can we just stop again? Can we stop again? Can we please stop again? What did you just say? I'm in also, see, people are like, well, the Podfather just says stuff, and he doesn't actually play fantasy. He doesn't actually watch the NFL. He doesn't play fantasy. He's just so full of shit. He's just out, there's no way someone can be that good on the mic and actually also be a nerdy fantasy football researcher. It's just not possible. It said there's no human being that can accomplish all of that. There's only 24 hours in the day. Well, guess what else I'm doing? I'm eating at my own restaurant. I'm going to my own rankings on Player Profiler. Thank you to Theo and Dario and all the guys that make these rankings possible and make them as good as they do. And I'm finding edge in the deepest of leagues, going to the ends of the earth to pick up guys across many, many, many leagues. Patreon.com/Podfather. We have more than 10 patron leagues where people are challenging me, and I'm actually winning money overall. When you add it up, I put in my own money from my own wallet every year, and I win money from the patrons because I say, hey, go ahead, challenge me, go ahead. And then you look up, and who's stashing Rico Dowdle on every roster? Who's paying that couple extra dollars of fab money to make sure he locks in Rico Dowdle across 10, 12, 15 teams? It's the Podfather. I do this because I love it, and I'll also outgrind you as well as outtalk you as well as outthink you.
You're not about this life, guys. You got to be about this life if you're gonna come and play against Matt and Billy and I. And I'm in some leagues with Alan too. Alan's out there grinding, drafting a ton. We're drafting again this week, Alan.
Yeah. We're doing another high stakes league on the NFFC. We're going to stream that as well, so everyone will get to see that. Guys, I think this could be a quick but easy conversation.
Alan, can you please get into the conversation you've been trying to get into? You keep getting distracted. And you keep delaying. We're trying to. You wanted to go deep sleepers. Can you please get into it?
This is not super deep. This is kind of deep, But Jordan
Hold
Mason.
on, let me
be
ask the
added
question.
everywhere.
Let me ask the question and pose it so you guys can answer in an efficient way. Here we go. Theo, I want you to lightning round, and then we'll go over to Matt in a moment. Give me 3 guys on your dynasty rosters that that it's time to cut the bait, even though that you somehow may have had an attachment to them, and three players that you're picking up that are now available in maybe at least some of your leagues. 3 and 3.
Well, I'm not sure I can do 3 and 3 at this moment.
2 and 2.
Why can't you do
okay.
3? You can't do 3 and 3? I got
I would
3 and
have
3
to
right
pull-
here. I got right off the dome. Boom, boom. I've been
2
doing
and
my
2,
preparation.
Theo.
I
2 and
dreamed
2.
about it last night, thinking Alan might ask this question. That's how good I am at this. Come on, Theo, step up.
2 and 2,
Well,
Theo.
I had
I
3
think
cups of
for-
coffee already today. I woke up at 6 a.m.
I think for my FFPC leagues, anybody who was stashing cheap Luke Schoonmaker, that's not going to happen. I think you can cut bait. I think he's going to be a complete bust.
The tight end on the Dallas Cowboys, rookie tight end.
Dallas Cowboy
Actually,
keeping-
Dallas admitted they drafted him only because of his athleticism on Player Profiler. Did you guys know this?
Didn't see that.
Dallas drafted him because they put this giant premium on athleticism because they did a study of what defines a breakout, and it's true that most breakout tight ends, almost all of them, have above average athleticism. And so then they saw Schoonamaker's athleticism in the second round, and they just pushed the button because they have Player Profiler. And then they fell for that thing that so many dynasty leaguers do, which is like you just get locked into like one metric, like speed score, and you just draft based on that alone. And they need to take a step back. This is the problem with when you make that leap into and decide, hey, our organization is going to become analytics focused. It takes years. It took us 10 years studying the analytics to get to a place where we now, I think, have calibrated things properly with the input factors and in how we evaluate and how we project. So I wish the Cowboys luck. They're going down the right path, but they're going to make mistakes along the way.
I'll say Eric Gray is another player
Whoa.
who I expect.
You're clipping
expect
him.
a lot. Well, we're talking FFPC. This is not a deep format. But in FFPC, he was one that I thought I was going to be able to carry into the season. But it sounds like Matt Breida is going to be, ahead of Eric Gray. I expected more out of Eric Gray. From what I've heard, he's way, way, way behind.
Well,
so I had him stashed everywhere.
Did anyone tell you, Theo? I can't remember. Early this spring,
Right. He's returning kicks.
Did anyone tell you how underwhelming Eric Gray was at the Senior Bowl and how he's completely worthless?
you were all over that, but
Did you remember anyone that was comparing Eric Gray to a bag of plastic dicks?
I think it was the Podfather, and I remember now because of the plastic dicks comment. That was like, that I was able to put 2 and 2 together very quickly. But you were spot on, Matt. Eric Gray is not going to be a thing this year. He's not going to be the cuff.
But
the
wait,
Giants
what if Matt Breida breaks as he always does? Do you think they'll just sign somebody? I mean, is that you'd think, or is he more of like, I can't roster him, we'll just pick him up in week 4 when he gets a spot start?
He's a guy that I don't think is ever going to help us in this season in fantasy, and unless you're in a very deep format, I don't have a whole lot of love for Eric Gray. But I'll tell you,
a good one, then.
the guy that you want to keep even in a shallow format is Jordan Mason. Jordan Mason, there's literally no steam about him.
Explain. So he's the running back on the San Francisco 49ers, second-year player.
So Jordan Mason, last year we had a brief, where I was writing about him in the waiver wire column here on Player Profiler. It never happened. But Jordan Mason apparently is having a fantastic camp.
Stole mine.
Elijah Mitchell. Elijah Mitchell is not going to happen, guys. He's cannot stay healthy. And we have Tyrion Davis-Price and we have Jordan Mason, and Jordan Mason is ahead. Okay. Jordan Mason is a Christian McCaffrey injury away from being a weekly top 20 play at the running back position. So I'm all about
a Christian McCaffrey load management week, which is, I said that's going to happen when they're 10-point favorites, or if they've taken a 17-point lead in the third quarter. It's sit down McCaffrey. Let's go Jordan Mason. You might be able to, if you're in a desperate spot, start a player like that when you see that they're double-digit favorites. I really like that call. I hadn't thought about Mason at all. So give us 2 players that...
You hadn't thought about Mason?
I'm trying to help the audience
Mason's a guy I think about every day. I think about Jordan Mason.
You wake up and you go to sleep thinking about Jordan Mason.
What do you say? You're not thinking about... What?
It's a good call.
Are you? You keep talking about all these dynasty leagues you're in, how deep they are and how high stakes they are, and you're not constantly thinking about Jordan Mason. Shame on you.
And I'll give you one more, Alan. One more.
Yes, please.
I'll take this one away from Matt too, because Matt wanted to talk about him. I can tell. Malik Cunningham is the next, potentially Taysom Hill-like player in the league. I don't know how he's going to
explain
get
who
on
he
the
is.
field.
Explain the team.
So
and the
Malik
position.
Cunningham was an incredibly efficient, player at Louisville. Gets converted over to wide receiver as a prospect. The New England Patriots give him $200,000 guaranteed this summer, and don't quote me on that. It might have been $250,000. It was a massive amount of guaranteed money to give to an undrafted free agent. He gets to New England. He's doing well. Everybody's raving about his athleticism. They've started to use him at quarterback more. So they had him come in the preseason first game. He ends up playing wide receiver to start the game, and then is a dynamic looking quarterback in the fourth quarter. Now they're starting to move him up the depth chart a little bit. It sounds like he might be the third string quarterback to start the year.
Well, can I tell you who he's better than already? He's better than Bailey Zappi.
Yes.
For Christ's sake. Drop Bailey Zappi in Superflex and 2 QB leagues. Can we say that? Drop Bailey Zappi. Get him out of there. He's the third quarterback on the depth chart. He's not better than Mac Jones, and he's not better than Malik Cunningham. Get him out of there.
Malik Cunningham, guys, needs to be rostered based on what he could be. And I'm enamored with Malik Cunningham right now. I think he's a real talent, and we've seen Bill Belichick with guys who've changed positions and been quarterbacks in college and then have impacts like we saw with Julian Edelman. Obviously, this is way different, but I think Bill Belichick loves these super versatile guys that he can do different things with. And I think there's a chance that Malik Cunningham might be a Taysom Hill-like, factor for New England this year. They've added Zeke Elliott. They have Ramondre Stevenson. And how about just like a weird attack where they're running the ball a ton and using their backs and using Malik Cunningham, on a couple series of games. I mean, that's how you're gonna go against Miami and Buffalo with Mac Jones as your starting quarterback and nothing at wide receiver. Is be creative.
There we go. Before Podfather closes the show with his ads and drops for the end of your roster, I just wanted to quickly. It's time. It's obviously time to drop Russell Gage, Denzel Mims. I think James Robinson's an easy cut at this point. We've talked about Malik Davis, and Bam Knight seems like he's going to be the odd man out on the Jets. You could wait until that's official.
Oh, you took mine. Damn it! I was going to say drop Zonovan Knight.
Okay. Well,
thanks a lot, Alan. I only have 17 more to go.
Okay, so just. Podfather, who are some of those end of the roster? We've had them on there. We can clean them out. And then a couple players that we should be picking up.
Yeah, I'll just go through my actual teams, okay?
Yeah.
I have to tell you, I am dropping Kevin Harris. I have Kevin Harris on a bunch of deep Dynasty rosters, but Ezekiel Elliott now makes Kevin Harris the number 4. He's now a cut candidate. The reason I'm not dropping him at a higher velocity is because the beauty of Kevin Harris is you got to hope that they release him. He will get scooped up by another team, and he could get scooped up by a team like the Chargers that has a shallow depth chart, and then suddenly he's the second best running back. If he was on the Chargers, he'd be the second best running back. I know people are picking up Dotson, right? That's fun. Elijah Dotson's fun. He's doing great in preseason, small school guy. I like him. I'm picking him up everywhere, right? So there's a guy I'm picking up, and I'm dropping Kevin Harris. But I'm not dropping Kevin Harris everywhere. I'm only dropping Kevin Harris when it's a tough decision, right? When I don't have a Zonovan Knight. Zonovan Knight's an easy cut because he's going to actually be cut, right? Malik Davis, he's going to be cut. James Robinson, these guys are not going to make rosters. And then whether they end up finding their way to another team is up for debate. That's not up for debate with Kevin Harris. And remember, any of these teams can suffer back-to-back injuries at the running back position. It is a violent game. It is most violent for the running backs. They get injured at a high rate. And there are multiple teams every year where both the number 1 and number 2 running backs on the depth chart go down. And then we're all talking about playing the RB3 on that team in DFS. Everybody knows it. And so now you're talking about 2 of the most injury-prone running backs in the league. Elijah Mitchell has the highest fragility rating, his probability of injury on any given touch, on the Injury Finder app that's called fragility rating. The highest fragility rating among running backs is Elijah Mitchell. And who's behind Elijah Mitchell? On a run-first team, one of the most efficient offenses in the league, and a lot of touchdowns scored, it's Jordan Mason. So Jordan Mason is the best of the fringe, under-owned running backs to pick up for Dynasty, absolutely. And so it's a situation where if it comes to Mason versus Kevin Harris, I'm going to be dropping Kevin Harris, even though I think Kevin Harris is a better running back, and I think he will get opportunity elsewhere, not with the Patriots. That's a move I'm making, okay? And then if you go look around the league, you've got a bunch of guys that, it's time to move on. Sadly, we should mention the player that I'm dropping the most this week is Ashton Dulin. Ashton Dulin is going on my IR, but I'm in a bunch of these leagues that don't have an IR spot, and if I'm in a league without an IR spot, I have to drop him. I know that you're making a stink face, Alan, and shame on you. This was an all-pro player, okay? He went to a small school in Malone College. He was totally forgotten about, like Austin Eckler and Adam Thielen and so many of these undrafted guys. And he made a name for himself on a team. He moved up the depth chart. He became an all-pro special teamer. And he was making play after play in preseason, especially last year. And he was actually called upon in 3 receiver sets last year until the injury. It's incredibly bad luck with a guy that's 6'1", with athleticism and makes plays on the football field, and he's just a great football player and a great person. It's a great story. And for his career to be derailed like this by injury the last couple of years, just as he was starting to blossom, should be heartbreaking to everyone. It's a player I love, and it's really sad to drop him because it's a little more than just fantasy with Ashton Dulin. It's someone that I think is he was going to return dividends on another team in another situation, perhaps. On the Colts, I don't think it was ever going to happen for him just because it's a low volume offense and Michael Pittman's there and they drafted Alec Pierce. Had the doors slid a different way early in his career, we could view Ashton Dulin as something special in the league right now, and he's going to retire in anonymity. And to me, that's sad. And it just goes to show the randomness, the random chance of these coin flips that can determine careers. But I'll tell you who's not going to have a career in the NFL. It's Zach Kuntz. Zach Kuntz is being dropped. This is a guy with hyper athleticism, but just like Schoonamaker, athleticism is not enough, right? And the NFL told you that it was almost a greater indictment of Kuntz that they refused to draft him until the final rounds, even though he was a hyper athlete. So there's another guy that we're shedding, and I'm dropping him to pick up a guy like Rico Dowdle, for example. Rico Dowdle is the number 2 in Dallas. You need to go get him in every dynasty league, okay? Because Malik Davis is not a thing. Malik Davis runs a 4.7. Why anyone thought he was the guy behind the guy, I don't know where that rumor got started. I was never a person that ever was picking up this guy because I'm like, this guy's not good at all. Rico Dowdle, when healthy, when he's not breaking his hip in half, he's actually really good, right? He's fast. He's an all-purpose back. He has, the requisite size and all-purpose skill set to be a degraded version of Tony Pollard should Tony Pollard miss games. I don't think Tony Pollard's going to miss games. I don't want him to miss games, but it's possible that he misses games. Now, a guy I mentioned before is Greg Dortch. I'm actually dropping Greg Dortch in some leagues because I see Michael Wilson coming. The health has been there this offseason in training camp for Marquise Brown, has had an unusually healthy offseason, as has Rondale Moore, and there's just not a lot there. The Cardinals coaching staff is emphasizing size. They've been building up Michael Wilson. Even though Greg Dortch is making some splash plays in preseason, I just don't think it's going to happen for Greg Dortch. So there's another deep guy that I'm dropping. I'm dropping Quez Watkins. Quez Watkins, anytime a guy like Quez Watkins, who is a fringe receiver that needs an injury, but he has some trait that you love, if it's speed and he's suffering through injuries, if there's ever a Q tag next to a guy like that, you got to just walk away. I'm also dropping Robert Woods. What is the upside? What is the upside of Robert Woods? Why am I getting... If Tank Dell is doing this well, okay, and John Mechie's coming back, and it's a rookie quarterback on a low-volume offense, in a low-volume situation, I'm in some shallower leagues where I have deep wide receiver cores, and I actually have more Robert Woods than I thought. I'm not dropping him everywhere. If I need a body to put in at wide receiver 5, I'm not dropping him. But what happens is a guy will exceed expectations in the preseason. He'll flash, and then the coaches will be like, yeah, we're going to be playing this guy. This guy's earned a role, right? When you hear that, you have to also think through, well, what does that mean, the cascading effects of other guys on the roster? And in Dynasty, at no point is Robert Woods ever going to beat you. So if you're in a difficult situation, you really want to pick up a guy like a Malik Cunningham in a superflex league, and you don't have any roster space, but you know Malik Cunningham is going to be valuable. He's going to be a guy that people want at some point, whether it's this year or next year, and you're desperate to get him on your roster. I give you permission to just drop Robert Woods, knowing that he cannot actually hurt you. That's sometimes the determining factor. Also, I'm picking up DJ Dallas. DJ Dallas is interesting because Kenny McIntosh is out. So whenever you see any injuries on a depth chart to a guy that projects to be a starter, whether it be Kenny McIntosh, whoever it is, right? You need to think through, what does this mean? Well, there's been 3 injuries. Every single member of the starting running back core in Seattle has suffered an injury, whether it be a shoulder injury to Charbonnet, whether it be the groin injury to Walker, knee injury to McIntosh. Everyone's getting injured in that backfield. Who's the one guy that's been stable? Who's the one guy that's been starting in preseason? Who's the one guy that Pete Carroll trusts in pass protection? It's DJ Dallas. Okay, can I keep going, Alan? Do you mind if I keep going? I know we're over time, and I know you wanted to go at 11:15. Do you mind if I keep going? Because I can't stop. I won't stop. There's so many fringe guys that I'm picking up, and there's other guys I'm dropping. Can I keep going to fully answer your question? Do you mind, Alan?
Keep going. I got a pee break though. This is getting crazy.
I'm picking up Adam Troutman. Adam Troutman is actually the Adam Troutman is actually the starter as of right now. Do I think Greg Dulcich is going to outproduce him? Yes. But last time I checked, Adam Troutman was a prolific tight end in college. He looked a lot like Dallas Goedert, right, in college. I don't know what happened to him. I think actually what happened was he was devastated by a litany of injuries: arm injury, shoulder injury, ankle injury, knee injury. The guy has been incredibly banged up during his time in New Orleans. So we weren't able to get a fair assessment of Adam Troutman. But do you know who did get a fair assessment of Adam Troutman because you saw him every day in practice?
Was it Sean Payton?
Sean Payton. And guess who Sean Payton brought in?
Adam Troutman.
Who is Sean Payton starting over Greg Dulcich?
Adam Troutman. And Matt, he gave up a lot of draft picks to draft Adam Troutman. I believe they traded like 4 late picks to get into the 4th round to select Troutman. So there's been some infatuation with the Dayton Flyer, Adam Troutman.
Yeah. 900 plus yards and 14 touchdowns at Dayton. In college, this guy had more than 30 touchdowns. And so when he's scoring touchdowns in the NFL this year for the Denver Broncos, no one's allowed to be surprised. What other injuries have we seen down the depth chart? Russell Gage. Someone mentioned Russell Gage. Of course you're dropping Russell Gage. He's torn his ACL. His career's over. Who's below Russell Gage in the depth chart? Who's exciting? Who's interesting? There's going to be a couple day 3 picks like A.T. Perry, who was just fantastic at Wake Forest and dropped in the draft for no reason. You need to be picking up A.T. Perry if he's available in shallower dynasty leagues. But in deeper dynasty leagues, who is in that A.T. Perry slot in Tampa?
Trey Palmer.
Trey Palmer runs a 4.33. 4.33. Who does that remind you of? In New Orleans.
Was it Callaway you're talking about, or who was the
No,
speedster there?
there's another receiver in New Orleans that everyone's already picked up. What's his name? Rashid Shaheed.
Oh, right.
This could be a Shaheed-like season for Palmer.
This is
where he's
very
your,
much a Rashid Shaheed. For all the same reasons I was stashing Quez Watkins. If you run a sub 4.40, then oftentimes NFL teams will find ways to make you a punt returner, get you on the active roster, and then also get you out there in 3 and 4 wide receiver sets as a field stretcher. And then it's just up to you to make plays. And if you can start making plays, then suddenly you're Tyreek Hill. Am I saying Trey Palmer's Tyreek Hill? No. Right? But that principle of just putting your chips on the guy that runs the 4.33, especially in light of the Russell Gage injury, that to me is a stash that you have. It's irresponsible not to go pick up Trey Palmer. Everybody go to your Dynasty League right now, pick him up, put him on the taxi squad, and thank me later. Hey, I want to take a moment to thank you for tuning in. It's important to me that all of our media be free. This is only possible because of you allowing a true independent sports media enterprise to thrive unlike any other in the business. So please subscribe to the All In Package to continue to make all of this possible, to ensure that all of our stats, information, data, content is available to you, especially you, the people that get the site and get the show.